Welcome, everybody. So today we have a wonderful guest. His name's Pete Daly-Dickson. He says it better around the 6-7 minute. We just go into it. In the beginning, it's going to be a little rough. I thought we were just doing a pre-meeting thing. I guess that's a thing with podcasters. I find it annoying. So I turned off the recording for like a minute or two. So it's going to just jump from me saying, oh, we're doing this, to him awkwardly coughing. And there we are. So wonderful guest. It's like I literally went to the pub and had a chat with him. It was a blast. I'm looking forward to getting him on in the future. So enjoy. And yeah, here we go. Pete, how you doing?
Hey, Josh, how are you, man? I'm great.
That's good to hear. And I'm doing great too.
That's it's really quite strange. You get used to hearing someone. I've listened to a few episodes of your podcast on my walk today, and you kind of you hear the podcast host, and you kind of build up a picture of what they look like, and then you get on the call and get a chance to meet them. It's great. I love it. You've had some amazing conversations with some great people.
Thank you very much. So I'm just curious, what did you envision for me when you didn't see my face beforehand?
Blonde hair.
Really?
Not dark hair. Yeah.
I did have blonde at one point.
When you were 2 years old or something.
Yeah. That's too funny.
Yeah. And a bit of maybe it's because I've got a beard, but I kind of envisage you with a kind of just not a beard like this, but kind of just bit of stubble or.
It's usually what I have.
There you go.
I'm gonna say that's usually what I have, but my boss, depending on his mood, I have to shave it. Yesterday, I had to shave it. So, what did you want to talk about? You just said my show, but I'm like, there's got to be something you do also.
Yeah. Well, are we recording? Is this the episode?
Just a pre-meeting?
Okay. All right. Cool.
Okay. I want to say, is this a pre-meeting? Then never mind. Okay.
Yeah. You were talking about in your about page, you talk about business, and you talk about mindset, and you talk about psychology, and that was enough for me to reach out and say, well, I like talking about all those things too.
Yes.
And then subsequently listening to a few episodes of your podcast, it's the kind of conversations I like listening to, and being able to have a conversation like that might be able to give a little bit of value to one or two of your listeners. Basically, okay. Josh, I love talking to people.
Me too.
And any excuse. Well, I have to be careful though, because I do host my own podcast, so I'm used to asking the questions. So if I start asking too many questions, you have my permission to say, I'm the host, you're the guest. I ask the questions.
No. Those are usually the most fun, when they start asking questions like, I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
So I tried to download your show, but it was like, at least my app, I don't know if it might just be my phone too. I couldn't actually play your episode. I was going to listen to yours too. The
6-Star Business podcast.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it might just be my app. It's lately been giving me a lot of trouble. I've had to factory reset my phone and everything.
Oh God, what phone have you got, and what app do you use?
Google Pixel and Podcast Addict.
Okay. Well, it's probably easier to change your podcast app than it is your phone. Maybe experiment.
Yeah,
I use Pocket Casts. Swear by it.
Okay. Yeah, then I might try that. Because about a second in, all I hear is you go, shit, okay, we did this on your most recent one. I'm like, I love this guy. That's all I needed.
Wow.
So
where do you want to start? Where do you want to?
Just tell me about yourself. Where you're from, what you do.
Okay. Well, I'm Pete Daly-Dickson. I live in Coventry in the UK, and I'm married to my wife Andrea. We've got four kids/stepkids between us, ranging from 25 down to 13, nearly 14 this year. So we're kind of a modern blended family from, multiple relationships, but it keeps us happy and keeps us sane. Oh, and we have a rabbit as well. My wife is very keen to make sure that I talk about the rabbit, and possibly soon to be two.
Yeah, you got to have a buddy for the rabbit.
Yeah.
It's like dogs.
So yeah, that's right. So I live in Coventry. In December, I will have been around the sun 53 times. That's your cue to say, "My gosh, Pete, you don't look that old," but you missed that one. You go on. You can still say
you really don't look your age, actually.
Thank you.
I was like, you said it for me. It's like you really don't look your age.
I'll pay you afterwards.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've had quite a eclectic. I kind of almost hesitate to use the word career, but if we can use that word to describe the various iterations of one's life, the various things that one has done and jobs one's had and businesses that one has started and what have you. So it certainly hasn't been a career in the traditional sense. So I've always had an interest in computers. So I studied computers at college. I've always had an interest in acting and drama. So at one point in my life, I went to drama school and then worked professionally as an actor for 5 years. I've been employed. I've been a business owner. And now in this kind of stage of my life where I'm at now, I'm a podcaster and community builder, all under the 6-Star Business movement, if you like. That's where I'm focused.
That's interesting. So actually, when I was younger, I went to college to do the lighting and sound for theater. And like where we are in California, they have like classes for that, if you want to say. I've come to realize you don't actually need the classes. But the one thing,
just get in there and start doing it.
Pretty much. But the weird thing for me was it was a lot of in-field training, and I got to work with a lot of actors. I helped with, like, do you know Little Shop of Horror?
Yeah. Great show.
We got the original set from Broadway for our thing. That stuff was heavy, by the way. It felt like they killed at least 3 deers just for the freaking monster himself. But and I was the poor unfortunate soul. I had to move the props back and forth, and it would always be the coincidence. Everyone just had to go to a smoke break right on that cue. So I'm sitting there trying to like drag an 800-pound thing back all by myself. And then one of the actresses, it was the one that was initially fed to Seymour. She's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, No, I can see now why people drink and do drugs on this job.
I've had a similar job, if you like, in theatre. One of my first jobs as an actor was at a festival, a repertory festival theatre up in Scotland, Pitlochry Festival Theatre. And I was an acting stage manager, an ASM. So you had stage management duties, so moving props and sets and stuff. And it was a repertory theatre. So every night there was a different, in fact, there's normally a matinee and an evening show every day. So like every next show was going to be a different production. So the whole set had to be moved out and moved back. So yeah, I know that world well, and I've always said that when you're in work as an actor, it's just the best freaking job in the world. It's incredible, the kind of people that you're with and the work that you're doing. The challenge is that it's an off and on kind of work environment, and it's unfortunately more off than on for most actors. And I eventually got just too tired. I mean, they say don't take it personally when you don't get auditions, but there comes a point in time when it's hard not to. So I decided to let that. I'd kind of. I mean, the thing that drove me into it, Josh, and it kind of gives an insight into my personality is I remember thinking, I was just kind of in my early 20s, I suppose. I'd moved back to Hong Kong, so I was was brought up. I'd moved back to Hong Kong to work after studying computers. And I remember thinking, I don't want to get to 40 and wonder what would my life have been like if I'd gone to drama school. And I read recently in The One Thing, the book, The One Thing. I don't know if you've read that.
Never heard of it.
Highly recommended. Yeah, The One Thing. And the author talks about something towards the end of the book where the vast majority of people, when they get to the end of their life, is they regret. You regret the things that you don't do, not the things that you do. And I guess at some level, I knew that at that age without having kind of formally heard it from anyone. And so I thought, well, I don't want to have that regret. So kind of like to mitigate that possible future regret, I just up sticks and came back to the UK and went to drama school, and then obviously my life then took that direction.
Right. So is drama school needed as an actor? I thought about being an actor, but I had terrible self-esteem, and I feel like my smile, I figured Hollywood wouldn't like that anyway. So I was just kind of gave up. But that's the main question. A lot of people are like, oh, you need to go to like an acting school. I'm like, do you though? I don't know. And I'm not trying to be sarcastic on that.
No. It's a great question. Yes and no. I mean, there are both technical and potentially artistic reasons for going to drama school. You know, when you're particularly, I never did any film work, but particularly
so it was a lot of stage.
It's all stage work. So particularly on the stage, you want to be using your breath correctly, because otherwise you're. Is this a 18 show? Can you?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
I'll put explicit and we're good to go.
Okay, right. Yeah. So yeah, if you're not using your breath and your voice properly, then you will fuck your voice. You know, you will damage your equipment. But do you need to go to drama school to learn that? Maybe 20 years ago or 30 years ago when I went, maybe. But nowadays, there's YouTube, there's kind of online classes, there's voice teachers that you could probably hire for classes. So I think it's the question is a good one, and it highlights for me, I think, an important aspect of growth and development as a human, in that the most important thing is your desire. Because if you have a strong enough desire to be an actor, or to be, for actor, have that as a underscore blank and just fill it in with whatever it is that you want. If your desire is strong enough, then nothing is mandatory other than what it is that you figure out that you've got to do to be able to get what you want. When the desire is strong, obstacles are only obstacles when your why is not big enough. When your why is big enough, it doesn't matter what gets in your way, you'll make it happen. You'll find a way.
Or you'll just obliterate it and just keep going.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that it's funny is you're touching on. I don't know if you read it, Simon Sinek, Start With Why. That's what I would think you read it because of the way you were phrasing it. But that is the biggest one. After I read that book, I'm like, oh my God, like my goals are like minuscule. I need to like pretty much aim for the sun. If I miss, at least I made it to the moon, kind of thing.
Yeah. So what is your why?
It's interesting is to teach and entertain people. So that hence the show. But how I figured this out is I still do. Been martial artist for 15 years, like next month.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I'm going for my second degree black belt too. That one's going to be intense.
Awesome.
The head guy of the system is going to be there. And it's like, oof, I actually got to do push-ups now.
Well, what discipline? What martial art?
Kempo, if you're familiar with that.
Yeah, is that swords?
We can do swords. It's mostly how I explain it is you've seen Cobra Kai, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, either the old school one or the new Netflix one. So how the guy is just brutal, do whatever it takes to win. Well, how I explain is Cobra Kai, but taught by Mr. Miyagi.
Mhm.
So we try to, like, if the guy wants to do your phone, just handle your phone kind of thing. Like there's a lot
Yeah.
of things now it's not worth dying over your phone kind of thing. But it's like, if he still intends to hurt you, well, try to run away. If he intends to kill you, all bets off, just end his life. Here's all the tools you need kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where everyone's like, oh, it's a dirty art. I'm like, well, sort of. I mean, everyone else doesn't immediately go for an arm lock or like instantly into judo. So, like, I guess this is the only art I know.
I interrupted you there. You were saying you're going for your second Dan.
Yes, actually, that's a good one. As you know that. Yeah, so I'm going for my second Dan. It's been 15 years. It's the only thing that was consistent. And the reason I got so good so quickly was because I was teaching. And that was the biggest one when I realized, I'm like, the money's not the thing I like. It's watching the light bulb in a 6-year-old realize, oh, I can't do this kind of thing. I have to do this. The biggest light bulb, like there's no price I could put to the immediate enlightenment of that. Because I was actually losing money more than I was making. But that is when I realized, okay, I want to teach, but I also had a bit of a humor because they were younger. I can make more abstract jokes and they would just lose it. And it's hysterical. And then I just get them back to teaching.
So that incorporates the entertainment as well. That's wonderful.
Right. And then I just realized I like just helping people in general. So I was like, okay, so my business lately, what I'm working on is getting this to go. I'm working on like a teaching thing. And I'm not sure exactly where I should start, but and then I actually like the markets, like trading and the futures and all that. That's a very, very niche thing. And I try to explain it to people and they're just like, what kind of thing? So figuring out a balancing act for all three. And then, sure, yeah, I'd be happy. It would never be work again.
Well, it doesn't, you would be working, but it wouldn't feel like work. I guess that's
exactly.
That's the thing, isn't it? Yeah. When you're aligned, my experience as I think back over, the decades that I've been on the planet, I think where I've been aligned with my purpose is another way of describing it. Where I've been aligned with my purpose, that's where I've been most fulfilled and most mostly in that state of working, but it not feeling like work.
Right. It's the perfect flow.
Yeah. It's kind of culminated in what I'm doing now with 6-Star Business, because my purpose is to activate people's potential, helping people to see the possibility of how great they can be.
Yes.
and how great their business can be. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you worked and you were a business owner. Now you're podcasting in the community. Are you still a business owner, or have you switched a little on the gears?
Well, there is a business underlying the podcast and the community. So to that extent, I am still a business owner. The expression of that business is different than in other kind of iterations of my life, previous evolutions. Where I've either had a consulting business or a web design business, or most recently a software business, and I've been in the kind of technology space. But now I said, I don't know whether you're going to include it, whether it was in the pre-show chat or whatever, but I love talking to people. I'm gifted at talking to people. So that's what I do now. And in this day and age, you do that with a podcast. And what my co-host Evelyn Clark and I found was that the people that we were having conversations with on the 6-Star Business podcast, firstly, were just fucking awesome human beings.
Oh yeah.
And secondly, we didn't want to end our connection and our conversation with them just at the end of the podcast conversation. Our show isn't an interview so much as a conversation down the pub between 4 people, some of whom everybody knows at least one person. You know, it's like when you go down to a pub and you might know one person there, and they brought a friend who you've not met before, but they introduce you, and then by the end of the night, everyone's getting on famously, and you're all pissed and whatever. So that's what we don't get pissed, but we have that kind of that sense of meeting up with friends and friends that you haven't met yet on our show. So out of the podcast, we created a community called the 6-Star Business Community. We pulled out all of our creative juices and muscle to come up with that name, and it was just a natural evolution. And I think that's also, as I reflect back on my life, an aspect of my personality, and something I would reflect back to something you said earlier, that you were talking about this teaching thing and you weren't quite sure, what form it's going to take, is I'm a firm believer in just getting going and just starting and just letting things evolve. And that's not to say, you kind of just, it's let's say fair, and you kind of just, let's let all kind of, I don't know what the word is. And anything I say is potentially going to be derogatory to some people, so I'll just say, you don't want to be vague or whatever, but you can take a step, and you can see what results you get with it, and you can talk with people. That's another thing about it as well, is if you're unsure about something, just talk to a shitload of people about what it is that you're thinking.
That's the biggest one I've learned.
Yeah, and you'll get input, and some of it will resonate with you, and if it does, then take account of it. But if somebody says something to you and it doesn't resonate, then what I'm saying, I guess, is that you don't need to have a sense of being swayed by what other people are saying. Everything's got to be filtered through your own sense of self and purpose. But yeah, talk. If you want something to become real in the world, talk to people about it, and just start doing.
Just fucking do it.
Just fucking do it. Just start doing something towards it. And that's what the 6-Star Business, where we've got to the 6-Star Business, is just that, absolutely made manifest. Evelyn and I, good friends, we've been knowing each other for 5 or 6 years. We were having a weekly conversation every week, funnily enough, with no agenda. We were just, we got on, we were friends, and we thought, we're both business owners, small businesses. We thought, well, if we talk every week and catch up every week, we can support each other. We might have ideas. There might be an opportunity to collaborate. And, there was no agenda, though, other than just to show up and just be with each other, for an hour or so every week. And the result of that, August, September last year, so I guess about a year ago, at some point in a conversation, one of us said, and again, it's one of those things, like, you try and think, looking back on it, you try and pin it down and see, what were we talking about for this to come up? But the question was, why is 5 stars the most that you can rate anything? It doesn't matter whether it's a business or an app or a hotel or a restaurant or a martial arts dojo or whatever. It's like 5 stars is it. And that kind of led to then the next question for me, is that if a 6th star was available, what would the business have to be like in order to get that 6th star? And from there, that then evolved into, just going back to what I said earlier, I guess practicing what I preach, is I started talking about that to other people. I started asking that question to other business owners. And I found, and Evelyn found, those conversations to be really interesting and really stimulating, because I guess at some level, it speaks to excellence and going, first down is not good enough. You're on second down, and second down is not good enough, and you're going to third down. There's always one better. And I don't know if there is a limit to the number of degrees of black belt that you can do. Is there, or do you just keep going?
There is, but it's like you have to devote like the rest of your life to it after like a certain point. Yeah,
exactly. But that is what being 6 star is all about. It's about just that constant, never-ending striving for excellence and constantly being better and doing better. So it got to the point where Evan and I said, well, we're having great conversations with people. Why don't we have these conversations in public? Which is what a podcast is. You and I just having a conversation. It just so happens that at some point in time,
someone somewhere will hear this.
Provided you don't think it's a load of shit and you don't bother publishing it. But assuming that we get out there, other people will listen to it. So we started the podcast, and we were talking to people. And just coming back to what I was saying earlier, if you want something to show up in the world, just talk to people and take action. And
absolutely.
And if you do that, it doesn't have to be massive action either. People talk about, take massive action, you get massive results. I think that's fucking bollocks.
But you also get burned out quicker too.
You absolutely. Massive results come from taking little steps consistently over a long period of time. It was Archimedes, I think, that said that, give me a lever long enough and I can move the world. Mm-hmm. Because you put a lever on a fulcrum, and that small little and the other saying is small hinges swing big doors. You don't need a massive hinge to achieve the massive result of closing a big door. Sorry, I'm kind of rambling and spouting, but hopefully there's something in there.
Someone somewhere got something. I did for sure, because that's the biggest one for me. Like, I said it in the beginning of the show, then I kind of just shut up about it. Was I've always wanted to do a podcast back when like Joe Rogan was at his hype at 2016, 2017. Like, I was like, oh man, I could do that too. Like, but then I just sat back. I'm like, oh, but there's so many controversies like he goes through. I'm like, I don't want the Twitter mobs to come after me and I lose my job, blah, blah, blah. Now, like, actually doing this, I'm like, please, like, curse my name. Get me known kind of thing. But at the time, I didn't know what that means. I was just thinking, like, try to play it too safe. And then from like in December, I got COVID in 2020. And that was when I realized, oh, my work doesn't care about me. Not one bit. So I'm like, okay, I'm a number to be crowned. And I'm like, all right, I got to figure out something so I don't have to be forced into this situation again.
So how long has your podcast been going?
Surprisingly, I started in January this year.
Okay.
So
thank you. So it's not true that yes, it might be true in terms of the overall length of time, but it's not true to say that your martial arts is the only thing that you've been, absolutely consistent at. Because I know the 6 Star Business Podcast is the second podcast that I've hosted. The first one ended at 45 episodes. I know what's involved in consistently showing up and recording and editing and publishing a podcast with show notes and everything. So hats off to you, brother.
Thank you.
Just keep doing what you're doing. Just keep showing up. That's what you've got to do.
Yeah. The one thing though, and I thought it was interesting, I don't know if you have this with your show, is I book like 3 people for the week and only like 1.5 somehow show up.
You have any follow-up with people? Well, you don't, because I didn't, because I booked onto your show.
Yeah. Honestly, when they reach out like that, I assume they're coming on. So it's not like, I don't think there's a reason.
Oh, no, you do. Well, you do have follow-up actually, because I got emails from you.
Right. I have it set for a day before, an hour before. Yeah. But I don't know, it's from because one person's like, I didn't get email at all. So I looked at my settings and I'm like, okay, it says it like right when it's starting. So I'm like, tell them an hour before, day before. Still people don't show up.
What you might want to experiment with, this is what we do on our show, because I'm just thinking back now, we started recording at the beginning of March, and we just released episode 33.
Nice.
And I think in that time, I don't think we've had a single no-show. I don't think we've had a single no-show.
Okay. And it also might just be like the people I talk to specifically that keep coming on a lot is marketers. So every time they would book was when it was the cold, like COVID scare. And then when they would come on is when like the hype, like, oh, you can go back in public. So they'd be like, screw this guy. I got to go talk to my clients kind of thing.
Fuck them. Right. They don't deserve to come on your show.
That's what I figure. Like if I'm not that important, then say fine, whatever. I'm not going to cry over it.
But I mean, words define our reality. so you said, well, if I'm not that important, then whatever. I and you said that out loud, so it might be that's what you're saying to yourself. I would potentially rephrase that and say that if they don't want the opportunity of coming on the Josh Bolton show because they think other stuff is more important, then fair play to them, and just start seeing your show both internally and externally as the greatest opportunity that anyone's going to have in terms of getting their voice heard. And that might not be literally true now, but if you keep showing up and keep doing what you're doing, then at some point in time it will be. Yeah.
And yeah, that's part of the whole like figuring out what I'm going to do, because I perceive this show as a great platform for like yours. Just let them chat, we have fun, if you cuss, whatever kind of thing, I'll just put the little button up. It's actually what I said to one of my bigger guests. He's a like senior vice president or something, pretty much the CEO of the American district for the company UBS, big financial firm.
Yeah.
And that was the biggest one. Like he told me afterwards when I turned off the recording, he's like, "This is the best show ever." He's like, "This is so great. Like I didn't have to worry about anything." That's where I lightheartedly said, "You don't learn when you're trying to be aggressive. The person gets defensive and holds all their stuff." Said, "I just treat this like I'm having a coffee with a titan of industry." Yeah. I'm like, "Is that dangerous?" And he's like, "No." Yeah. That's the whole feel. I'm like, just want to have a good conversation with you.
Yeah. And I might, again, just thinking about words, I might rephrase that for myself internally as I'm just having a conversation with another human.
That was the main thing I told him at the end.
And at the end of the day,
we're all human.
The labels and the categories, the labels that we put on ourselves and other people, and our desire to categorize everything can often get in the way of just a genuine human to human interaction and conversation. The first podcast I did, which I referred to earlier, came out of a desire to establish stronger connections within the partner ecosystem of a software company that I was a partner of. And I was just really curious and interested in who these people were, everyone was showing up at the partner event and the Facebook group and stuff, but it's like, who are the people behind these partners? We show up to work and different environments with different masks on, professional mask and social mask. And so I just really wanted to sort of start to take those masks off and see who the real people were. And that's the vibe that I get on this show. And I think ultimately it's the vibe that I got from your About page, which is why I contacted you, that it was, you were talking about things that interested me, but that it seemed to be that you were coming at it from just wanting to connect and interact with another human. As evidenced, I'll just finish now, as evidenced by the episodes that I've listened to. Yeah.
Thank you. That was the one thing. One of my guests, I split it up, and I kind of regret doing that. But it was the Shank and Heron one, and that was the one they told me at the end. They said, "Okay, we're going to give you a freebie right now. Like, how would you explain your show? But also, how would you explain yourself?" Like, and so I did it, and that was clearly what I said. I typed is what I said, and they're like, "Okay, that's your one page about like info." They're like, just obviously like get the grammar and the editing right, but they're like, just send that. They're like, that will make more connections than you trying to be all like professional, because they're going to be like, "Oh, he's another robot" kind of thing.
And that's what I saw. Is that what you're saying? That's
right.
Okay, wonderful. Well, there you go. Yeah, proof positive.
And that's the biggest one. I at times joke with myself lightheartedly. It's like at times I feel like I'm kind of cheating in life in a good way, because I've got to pick all these brilliant people's brains freely for an hour. And all of them have told me, they're like, "We're like 40 or 50 and we finally figured this out, and you're 28. They're like, the world's your freaking oyster once you figure out what you're doing." So I was like, huh.
Yeah. That's really interesting you say that, Josh, because I did an exercise with Evelyn, my business partner, co-host of the podcast, co-founder of the community, with another amazing human called Rebecca Newman, who's a good friend of Av's. And Rebecca's just her skill, her genius, however you want to describe it, is facilitating conversations with business owners about business growth. And she's got tremendous amount of business success behind her. But I'm probably doing her a disservice. Just incredible human.
Right.
And she took us through an exercise, and one of the questions that we had to answer independently and then share was, what have I learned about what have I learned through Six Star? So the Six Star Business Podcast, the community, we're co-creating the first volume now of a 3-volume book series, How to Be a Six Star Business. So what have we individually learned through Six Star? And I put a few things down, and then she asked the flip side of the question: is there what drives you nuts about what you've learned? What's the flip side of it? And I summed it up with kind of the essence really of what you had just shared there, Josh, and that I said that it's taken me so long. That it's taken me, because all the things I listed is basically, where I'm at now is a combination of right. everything that's gone before. And what drove me nuts about it is that, why is it taking me so long to figure this shit out? But there are no shortcuts. There are no shortcuts in life.
There's not. And like one of my coworkers, he listens and he gives me feedback. That's where I figured out I actually just chat with someone for like 10 minutes beforehand. That's what we were going to do, just to see how it works. Because he's like, some of your interviews are rough. He's like, but I understand they were super professional. He's like, it was still kind of rough. And it was just one of those, I'm like, yeah, I couldn't figure out if I could press this button. I'm like, it sounds weird, but like my brain likes patterns. So like if I hit this section, will this light up or will it just get redder kind of thing? And
how do you mean? I'm not following you. Where are you at?
So like a tree branch where it starts and then there's the V from there, then from the V, and it just keeps growing. So I do initial tests. Like for you, it actually sounds a little weird to say it out loud because I don't usually explain this. When we were first talking and I asked you, like, we were just going to talk about my show. And then you kind of like hesitated. That's where I immediately assumed, oh, this is a pre-meeting. That's why I canceled the recording kind of thing. And then I added on and then you like fully corrected me, said you were over here. And I was like, oh, okay.
Okay.
Does that kind of make sense now?
I think so. Not entirely. So, but worth exploring because I kind of get the sense of it. I guess I'm like in the context of that. What is it that
I was doing?
Yeah.
So here, actually, I can show you visually better than explain it.
And this is in the context of a particular episode that your friend was listening to and gave you feedback about.
Yeah, it was the Jeff Bearden Rustler one.
Okay.
He was like, it was hard to talk to him, wasn't it? I'm like, yeah, it was. We only talked about wrestling. That was the weird part, but it was fun.
Okay. So your reflection was that in the moment of the conversation, you were doing this thing that you're talking about. Okay.
So it's like this, where it's the different layers and it just keeps growing from there.
Right.
Yeah. So I saw you over here, but you corrected me. You said, I'm over here.
Okay. Yeah.
Kind of better, but not really.
Yeah, no, definitely. It can be difficult to keep track of that when you're in a one-on-one situation. I think is what I've got from it. And maybe the reason that I've gone into doing the podcast I'm doing now with someone else, with my co-host, Evelyn, is quite apart from the fact that we found 6R Business together, so it was obviously natural that we became co-hosts of the podcast together.
Right.
But from my experience of producing and hosting my earlier podcast was that I know exactly what you're saying. I mean, most of my episodes with that previous podcast were about an hour and a half, and there was one that was about 20 minutes.
Yes. Couldn't get. I've had the same thing. I couldn't get shit out of the person.
Yeah.
And the whole interview ended within 5 minutes. Yeah. So I'm like, you can't just send a 5-minute interview. What the heck?
Yeah. So I know exactly what you're doing. And I think in those moments, there's a. Do you listen to other podcasts?
Yes.
Okay. And you say you like joking around. So here's a podcast for you. It's and your listeners, obviously, it's a British comedian called Richard Herring. And he's got a podcast, Richard Herring, at the Richard Herring Leicester Square Theatre podcast. Richard Herring Leicester Square Theatre podcast.
I probably type in his name, I'll find it.
Yeah, you will. Well, he's got a couple of podcasts, but that's the one that I'm talking about. And he uses a thing. He's just funny as all get out. And he uses a thing called emergency questions. But emergency questions, but right. But for him, they're funny. Just like they get the conversation going off in a completely random, tangential, abstract, bizarre way. But the concept is a good one. You can have emergency questions kind of lined up, which if you feel the interview isn't going particularly smoothly and your guest isn't as erudite, as eloquent as I am, then you just sort of dip into your bag of emergency questions and ones that really get people thinking. And I think potentially part of the challenge, part of the function of conversations that end up like we're talking about, 20 minutes and you're done, is that the person we're talking to is just that they've got a mask on
and they won't take it off.
They're showing up with a mask and they want the world to see the mask. So to figure out what questions you can ask, which that they literally have to take the mask off to answer, to get in, because questions are the answer, and I often think that asking people a great question is actually giving them a gift, because it makes that person, and when you ask yourself a great question, you're giving yourself a gift, because it makes you think about things, your life, the situation, your environment, whatever it is, in a way that you've not done before. And when you do that, exciting things can be uncovered.
100%. So like touching on the mask thing, the guy I'm referring to, the like 25 minute one, he was a consultant in Australia. No biggie. It's like the internet, you do what you do. But before we even hit the record button, he literally said right out of the gate, "We are only talking about my book." And that's where I was just like, okay, don't know what I'm going to do with this. And that's where one of them, I just tapped a hair over the line. He gave me the most wicked look. He answered the question, and then we went back to his book. And that's where I was just like, okay, got to figure out how to bring this down.
So what did you learn from that?
I want more flexible guests like you.
Okay, but so let's pretend that you well, I'm not going to pretend this, because this is absolutely true. You don't have control over the guests that show up. So let's pretend that somebody else like that shows up. What did you learn from that experience to create a different result and a different outcome, which will be beneficial to them and obviously create a great experience for your listeners as well?
And so that's actually the biggest, the random emergency questions. I produced that from him because I sat there and I'm like, okay, he's a very unique case in of itself. I can't really work with him, and he won't work with me. So that's where I sat there. One of them, I guess, he was getting very rigid, very stiff. So I just jokingly said, I'm like, okay, weird tangent. Let's just have some fun. Let's say I wave my magic wand and we were going to 10x your company right now. What would you do to start that process? My God, that guy got so loose. He just like dumped everything out. And that's where I actually took that from Tim Ferriss, the 4 Hour Workweek guy.
Yeah, Tim Ferriss. Yeah.
Just took that from him. Just was like, just for fun. I'm not even going to trying to be serious right now. And it's super funny when they realize that, like, when you say that context, just for fun, I'm not being serious, they loosen their guard and they'll let you in, kind of thing. That's the biggest one I've noticed.
It's hindsight is 2020, and
right.
it's so easy to come up with somebody says something to at a party or whatever, and you're driving home after the party and you suddenly think, damn, I should have said this, and that would have destroyed them, or that would have kind of not destroyed them, that's the wrong energy, but that's the kind of witty response, or kind of something that would have unlocked the situation. That with hindsight, so this was before you click record.
No, that was like he was in the lobby before me, so that's where I saw the email and I immediately logged into Zoom.
Okay,
and then that's where he said, I was like only like a minute late because I wasn't expecting him so soon. And that's where he's like, yes, there you are, Josh. Like, I'm like, oh, hello, how are you, Ari Gulper, whatever his name is. And he's like, pleasure. We are only talking about my book. You got my package, right? And by the way, he sent me like this whole $100 package thing to my house. And I was just like, I even asked him, how much does this thing cost you? Because he sent me a little like disposable tablet with all these videos. And he's like, it's about $100 total. And I'm like, that's a lot of money. He's like,
I don't know Ari, but I know of Ari. He's the trust-based guy, isn't he? Trust-based selling. Yeah. Which is just so ironic, really, when you think about it, because trust, the foundation of trust is knowledge of another person. Because I can't trust you, Josh, unless I know you and find out about you, and trust comes as a direct result and a direct function of knowing someone. So, to my mind, being the expert on trust-based sales and showing up on a podcast and just saying, I'm not going to talk about myself, I'm only going to talk about my book. How's anyone going to be able to trust you?
I tried so hard to make him like go different directions without like tipping the boat. And it's just at that point, I was like, his tactics are good, but it's like, I don't know if I was the right one to get that out of him.
Yeah. So, okay. So specific case aside, what, with hindsight, looking back and driving away from the party, what could you have said, or what will you say the next time it happens, or something like that happens?
Kind of like it was mentioned earlier. It's like, what is just kind of casually bring up another topic. Like if it works, great, we go with that kind of thing. If not, then it's like, I see. Okay, we need to go to like, of the two, there's millions of options. I try to simplify it. From the two options, we can go down this route kind of thing. No harm, no foul.
Yeah, people are strange, aren't they?
They are.
All of us.
And it doesn't matter how many psychology books you read, you'll never fully understand it.
There's a saying in England, the whole world is strange. What is it? Something like the whole world is strange except me and thee, and even thee's a bit weird.
That's a good one. I haven't heard that one before.
Yeah. I probably butchered it, but yeah.
No, I would say most of us listening for the first time think it's the greatest thing ever. That is actually the biggest thing I learned from martial arts is, in general, people don't care as long as it works, kind of thing. And that was one of those, like, I butchered a form for a demonstration for like a camp or whatever. The kids were just like having a blast and running everywhere and repeating what they said. did it, and I told my instructor, like, but I failed. He's like, you and me both know you just completely failed. This is the first time they're seeing it. They think it's the best thing since chicken shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, that's always stuck with me. It's like, as long as you put as long as you put all your effort and passion into it, people don't really care. As long as you're passionate, they don't care.
Yeah. Passion and confidence will take you a very long way in this world.
Yes. And that was like the root of starting it all. What I was the thing, and that's where my instructor, he's dropped so many like knowledge, like sage advice bombs on me. And I now, with hindsight, that's where I say hindsight at times is a blessing, can be a curse. Because it's like, oh, if I knew that, if I comprehended like I just did right now, but that was one of them. The thing he said, like, as long as you're confident and passionate, people are not going to tell the difference unless they know. Then it's like, okay, you will adjust accordingly for them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great.
How long do I got you for, by the way?
Well, it's 10 to 6 here in the evening.
Oh, it's almost supper time.
Yeah. So I'm not on dinner duty, but probably another 10 minutes or so.
Sounds good. So then let's just wrap it up a little. I have like 3 going out questions for you.
Okay.
So the first one, other than work, what have you been doing to keep yourself busy during this COVID time?
Oh, wow. What a great question. My wife and I have been renovating a caravan.
Nice.
So while the kids were growing up, we always went on camping holidays, tent camping holidays in the summer. You got 4 kids, it gets expensive when you're, taking flights and booking hotels and stuff. Just bung them in the car and take the tent. And my wife and I and our youngest son Isaac were camping last summer in the UK. We had a lockdown from March of 2020 through to kind of July time, and then they relaxed it. So we had a bit of a summer holiday last year. So we went away on a camping trip, and there was a storm, and our tent got destroyed, like literally destroyed. And it ended up being like 9 o'clock at night. It was raining, it was dark, and we literally had to pack up and just throw everything in the car and drive home. We were about a 3 or 4 hour drive away from home. And my wife turned to me and just said, "That's it. I'm not going camping again." And she'd always had a real desire and, growing passion really to, she was following a load of people on Instagram, people that renovated caravans. And she said, now's the time. We're going to find an old caravan and we're going to renovate her. And that's going to be our replacement to camping. So we did that. We found a caravan up in the north of England last December. We drove up and picked it up. So from January to, when did we take her away? January to July, we were, most weekends we were working, doing some aspects of that. It was great. And we've taken her out a few times this summer. And believe you me, caravanning
much easier.
Beats the shit out of camping. Especially at festivals. We've been to a couple of festivals this year. Yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, I before the brakes went completely jelly, we had an old like 1970s RV.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the best thing ever. Like we would go to it was just small enough, like a little box truck. We backed in, we all had our bunk beds and all that. And that was great. Like, but being an old thing, the brakes completely went jelly on us coming back from a trip. And it was terrifying. It was essentially a tank that you could not stop. So we had to like time it just right to hit the stoplight. Yeah. So we've parked it and now probably going to get rid of it or something. Who knows? But yeah, that was the big one. I was like, Mom, I like this. We don't have all those bugs trying to get us. And I can take a shit on the toilet.
Yeah, absolutely. Although we don't do that. We just do number ones in Alu. But I wonder, it's interesting you talking about your RV, because I wonder if some aspect of why I'm enjoying it so much is some of the holidays that I remember most fondly as a child, and I mentioned very briefly earlier that I grew up in Hong Kong.
Mm-hmm.
So every summer, either going back to England or from England back to Hong Kong, we would have a trip. And the motorhome holidays that we had in North America are ones that I remember the most. In fact, it's funny because in my mind, there's one big motorhome trip, but when you look at the different parts of America and North and Canada as well, where I have memories of a motorhome holiday, they're opposite ends of the continent. So there's no way they could have been the same trip. So we must have had several motorhome holidays. But yeah, it's a great way to live. It's a great way to holiday anyway.
It is. And there's so many adventures. Yeah, you get those long spurts of like nothing and you're like, ooh, a tree, that's interesting kind of thing. There's literally just
we don't have that so much in England, but yeah, there's always trees somewhere where you are in England.
We're here in California, it's a wasteland still. It's like we were driving up to like Washington, and as we're going through the desert, it's just blank. And suddenly I'm like, ooh, look, a tree. Everyone just comes to the window. Oh my God, it is a tree. So the second question is, if someone's aspiring to be like you, successful entrepreneur, doing awesome stuff, family, repairing an RV, caravan, what are some tips, tricks, or advice you'd give them?
Believe in yourself.
Okay.
Just believe in yourself. It's that is the summation of it, really. You put me on the spot. I think because you were very gracious and kind when you referred to me as a successful entrepreneur and whatever. And I do consider myself successful. I've got a fantastic marriage. I've got brilliant kids. I have an amazing business partner. We're doing work that is changing the world and will make a significant difference to this planet. So, I feel incredibly blessed to be where I am. And as I reflect on where I am, part of me is thinking back to what I said earlier about, why did it take me so long? That if I allow myself to compare myself to other people, there's an aspect of you're not fucking successful at all. When you look at this person or that person, and there's even a couple of people that I heard on your podcast. I thought, bloody hell, Peter, you're going to be a bit of an imposter showing up on this show when you considering some of the people that Josh has spoken to. But I think ultimately, and we didn't even get into stories about, business failure and personal relationship failure and divorce and whatever, and that's nothing unique to me. It's almost par for the course. I mean, certainly from a business perspective, it's almost par for the course that you look at any successful entrepreneur. And if they only ever talk about their successes, one thing's probably almost certainly true is they're fucking lying through their teeth. Is that it's the stuff that's gone wrong. It's the stuff that hasn't worked. It's the stuff that other people might consider failure that has made them who they are. And the thing that has allowed me to get through all of the shit in my life, and I haven't had that bad of a life when you think about some of the upbringings that other people have had, but the thing that has allowed me to get through the low points when things haven't been working out, when my business has basically been run into the ground and been bought by one of my clients for $1, is belief in myself. Is that I know somewhere inside here that I've got what it takes. I might not be able to express it right now. I might not fully have the capabilities, but I know that I do, and I'm going to keep reading. I'm going to keep talking to people. I'm going to keep learning, and I'm going to keep showing up. I'm going to keep taking action. And you do that, and maybe it takes you 52 times around the sun. Maybe it takes you 28. Maybe it takes you 40. Maybe it takes you 70. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how long it takes, because it's about the journey. Just keep believing yourself. There's a wonderful Japanese proverb, I think, that sums this up, is fall down 7 times, get up 8.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that's what I've done. I just kept getting up. I'm like that. I'm like that. That toy punching bag thing that you could have as a kid, when you punch it and it's kind of weighted on the bottom and it goes down and then comes back up again, ready for you to hit again. You know the thing I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. It's like,
I'm like that.
Those little clown things that have sand at the bottom. You hit them.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Just do that.
You kind of have to, especially if you're going to business. You're going to have people constantly throwing shit in your face, and you just have to smile and say, "Can I have another?"
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, definitely, I want to say, you brought it up. I'm going to say I definitely want to get you on in the future, because, like you said, we were just chatting away. We didn't even get into the good topics. So, the last
hopefully there's some value in what we've talked about.
I got a lot definitely from this. So I'm 100% sure everyone listening will get a lot out of it too. So the last one, where can everyone contact you?
So my podcast, our podcast, is at podcast.sixstar.business.
Okay.
So it's always the numeral 6. So podcast.sixstar.business. And if you want to send us an email, you just go hello@sixstar.business. And either Av or I will get back to you. We're always looking for humans to talk to. You have to be human. Wait, provided that you can speak English. But generally, we like talking to humans on our podcast. On any aspect of what it means to be 6-star. So if you're listening to this episode with me chatting with Josh now, and when you hear the concept or the idea of a 6-star business and going above and beyond what is previously considered as being the benchmark, being the kind of the most you can do, if there's anything in that concept that resonates with you, then please get in touch. We'd love to have you on the show. Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. Love it. I appreciate you and all of the wisdom you've given today.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks for the opportunity to be here and talk to you.
It was an absolute pleasure. Well, congratulations. You made it to the end. You're an awesome person. Not many make it here. So, being the awesome person that you are, can you do me one more awesome favor? Can you rate and review this on whatever podcast services you're using? If you do it on Apple, and you leave an actual written review, I have a thing on my website. I will take your written review and post it for all to see. Congratulations, you're permanently sealed on my site. Otherwise, I am trying to do YouTube more and live streaming. I will try to put as many of the YouTube links in the description of the show as I can. So give your boy some extra help over on YouTube. Watch my videos. I just mute it and change the channel. Change the window or something. But yeah, that's it. Thank you for being awesome, and see you next time.